Do you think there's a hidden cost to the pursuit of excellence in the kitchen, one that people outside of the industry don't fully appreciate?
Yeah, the hidden cost it's usually two. It's mental and physical, right? The physical toll of being a chef. Let's start there. My North Star was completely, how do I make it delicious? You could spend 5 hours making the farce and cooking it sous vide, brining it, and doing a beautiful twill, but you just spent 5 hours on something that might not taste as good that you spend 1 hour on. The only incentive then is it delicious and do they want to eat it again? From the moment you see that chef's PSA post go up in the morning, I've been working for 3 hours before that, and I'm going to stop working when it's time to go to bed. Every day, 7 days a week.
Every dish tells a story, and with Rough Chop, that story begins with passion, precision, and purpose. We bring the soul of your vision into the world of fine dining, creating an unforgettable experience for those who are wanting more than just a meal. Whether it's a private dinner or an elegant catered event, this is where every plate becomes a moment. Elevate your next gathering with us and book now at roughchopllc.com.
All right. Well, Andre, very nice conversation that we just had there off camera, but
It's all
extremely
the things that people wish they heard.
yes. I really appreciate you coming on again and sitting with me and speaking with me on this new part two of the podcast here that we've already had in the past. And our first conversation was a great one. I had so many more questions going on, and as well as you have new things going on with the pop-up you're going to be working on, right? I believe it's called The Chefs Who Shaped Us.
Yes. Yeah,
Correct.
it's coming up, Chefs Who Shaped Us. I'm not sure when this will be released, but that is in Austin, Texas, at Foreign and Domestic Restaurant. And there's co-owners, Sarah Hurd and Nathan Lemley, and one of their sous chefs as well. And they decided that they wanted to do guest chef series with the chefs that, that kind of raised them in the kitchen. So Sarah and I worked together for years. She was one of my chefs. And this is an opportunity for me to get to cook with her, get back in the kitchen a little bit. Am I allowed to cuss on this?
Please. Yes.
I don't remember. I cuss all the time. So I'm like, do I need a PG, PG-13, rated R, rated X? So So I've been talking a lot of shit. I talk a lot of shit. I mean, I talk shit daily on Chef's PSA, but I've been talking a lot of shit about food in particular. And so this gives me an opportunity to verify that my thoughts are correct. The menu that I'm doing, it's in tandem with Sarah. So she's doing some things, I'm doing some things. It's only 3 courses, so it's pretty. I'd say it's reasonably safe. Um, but that means I have to be very strong on the 3 courses that I want to put up. And my thoughts on food right now is that I feel like a lot of the food is kind of missing. It's kind of missing the plot. Um, and I have this thought that food has to be delicious first. And I feel like we spend a lot of time working on techniques that might not improve that end result, or we work on aesthetics that don't improve that end result. And so when I was workshopping these dishes, my North Star was completely, how do I make it delicious? Period. I wasn't thinking about impressing other chefs. I wasn't thinking about it looking good on Instagram. I was not thinking about getting an award with it. My sole purpose in creating these 3 dishes was, will it be delicious and will I find it delicious, regardless if it's cool or trendy or not? And so working backwards with that in mind, we're doing 3 courses. Um, and I think, I was iterating the dishes yesterday. I did R&D and I cooked them all. And I tried them all together for the first time because and it's not that they're original dishes. It's just, I've never put these dishes on a menu before. So I did it. And I got to tell you, I think I've come to the conclusion that I'm right, that it is all about the food. Did you ever watch Indiana Jones?
Yes.
Real quick, If you're enjoying this conversation and you want more behind the scenes stories of the hospitality industry, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It's free, it'll help us grow, and trust me, you won't want to miss what's coming up next. Now back to the conversation.
Okay, so there's a scene and I think it's the very first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark. There's a scene in there where he's fighting someone with two swords, and the guy's doing all this flash, and when you're watching the movie, you begin to think to yourself, is Indiana Jones about to die? He's about to get fucked up by these two swords. And what does he do? He pulls out a gun and he shoots the guy, right? Point blank. Like, all that show was for nothing because I got a gun. Superior firepower wins every single time, right? The purpose of that fight was to end it. Period. Miyamoto Musashi, I like philosophy, and I like Eastern philosophy a little bit. Miyamoto Musashi is one of the greatest samurais who ever lived, right? Went undefeated until he retired in a cave and then wrote the Book of Five Rings, a Book of Five Rings. And one of the things that he speaks about is, at the end of the day, what your objective is to finish the fight and kill. All this other stuff, two swords, one sword, kill. That's it. And so some of his tactics were unconventional because he needed to get the most important result, which was to win. In culinary, it's much the same. The shortest path to get to the most delicious result is the right path, period. You could spend 5 hours making the farce and cooking it sous vide, and brining it, and doing a beautiful twill, but you just spent 5 hours on something that might not taste as good that you spend 1 hour on. And so back to the Indiana Jones point is like, the objective is to make it delicious. All this other stuff doesn't matter at the end. The only thing that matters at the end is, was it delicious, and do you want to eat that again? Will you come back to my restaurant and try this again?
So going back into you haven't cooked in a minute, right?
I have, but I haven't also. Like, I consult. Like, I do consulting for a lot of restaurants, and I'll go in and write their menus for them or give them recipes, train their staff. But I'm consulting on their idea.
Right.
Meaning, I'm going into an Italian restaurant and I'm consulting on Italian food, or maybe it's a modern American restaurant. I'm consulting on that food. But no one's calling me and say, do your food, do what you want to do. So I'm tailoring the food or the training based on what their end result is. But that's not necessarily the end result that I want. And so, to your point, I haven't cooked in a minute. I haven't been a chef driving the direction of the kitchen and the food in quite some time. 3 years now.
So in this event, is that what you're doing? You're going to be leading a team and pushing forward just as if you were working regular service?
Well, no, it's her restaurant and it's her team. So I'm going in as a guest. I have my plan of what my 3 dishes are going to be. I was just texting with her this morning. I sent her the photos of the dishes. We went back and forth on, it could be this, it could be that. Let's change this. I'm going to send her a prep list and recipes so they could start getting to work. And also, if they also want to try the dishes in advance, so it gives them, some framework of what that's going to taste like, so they can start working on pairings and everything else. And then, most likely, when I get there, God, I hope I'm not doing everything by myself. I hope they have a team, and I'm a little rusty. Can I do it? Yeah, but I mean, it's not the same. Like, I spend most of my day, in front of a computer working from my phone or recording podcasts or on phones consulting with people or meeting with people. I don't spend it on my feet every day, in front of a cutting board. So my lifestyle is very different. Can I still do it? Yeah, but it's not, the knees and the back aren't as good as they used to be.
Yeah, no, father time always wins.
Undefeated.
Very undefeated. Yeah. So, when you choose an ingredient, are you looking at it as something that needs to be transformed? Do you see it as something that already has full potential and just waiting to be understood? Can you describe your relationship with ingredients and the kind of dialogue that you have with the specific ingredient?
Yeah. So, man, this is such a deep question. I feel like I could go all over the place with my answer, but I'll give something very tangible and specific for your audience listening. This was an exercise that I did yesterday as I'm working on the dessert dish. So I want to focus on strawberries and cream. Like that's like Who doesn't love strawberries and cream? It's a great Wu-Tang song also, by the way, for your audience listening. But so I went to the market and I picked up 3 different types of berries, strawberries specifically. And then I cut all 3 of them and I tasted all 3 of them. And all 3 of them, even though it's summer, should taste the same, but they don't. One was extremely sweet, needed nothing. Like it's perfect the way it was. The other one, compared to that one, was pretty good, but it needed a little something. And then the third one, just compared to the other 2, was not great. But these are the strawberries that I'm working with. So in order to manipulate the flavors of the 3 strawberries, the ones that were perfect, I left alone. The ones that needed just a little bit, but not much, I put them in a cryovac bag and I compressed them with a very fruity olive oil that I got. Um, it was a Arbequina olive oil, and it was really nice, really fresh, organic. I compressed it with some Maldon salt, a pinch of sugar, and the olive oil. And then the third one needed the most lift. So with that one, what I did was I charred them. So caramelizing the sugars already that are present in the strawberry completely transformed not only its texture but also its flavor. So what I ended up with is 3 strawberries that are manipulated a little bit, but not much. But their flavors are now completely different, and also they're much more balanced together. Where the ones that weren't so great were lifted up by adding some technique to it. So I think the first thing that you need to do when you're looking at ingredients, because great ingredients definitely do lift up the food. If you're working with quality ingredients, you don't need to do much. A perfect tomato, good olive oil, some sea salt, maybe a high quality vinegar. Doesn't need that much. Maybe some fresh basil, whatever, some burrata cheese. But all of a sudden, you get a shitty tomato. Well, you might need to confit it. You might need to sun dry it. You might need to do something to it to concentrate the flavors, or compress it with something to bring it out a little bit more. So one of the other dishes that I'm working on for this dinner is artichokes. Artichokes are one of my favorite vegetables to work with. I often say like they're the final boss of vegetables because they're the most difficult to learn how to work with a knife and how to cook. In terms of like they're not a carrot or your typical root vegetable or a potato or something like that. But like you do need some additional skills to work with artichokes. They oxidize quickly, and you have to cook them, and you can overcook them, and but they also have a great and unique flavor. So, in particular with these artichokes, I prepared them 2 different ways when I was just kind of iterating to figure out what's going to be the best end result. So what I had talked about earlier, the shortest path to get to the most delicious result. So one of them I cooked sous vide, and then the other one I cooked traditionally. I braised it with olive oil, wine, and chicken stock. Some aromats as well. So I had some spring onions, some spring onion tops, and some carrots, and I put a piece of kombu in there, right, just to bring out some umami. So that's being braised on the stove. The other one that's going into the uh, into the bag, and that's going to be cooked for an hour at like 190 Fahrenheit, whatever that converts to in Celsius. I compressed it, same thing. So the same things are in both, but they're cooked very differently. I should rewind a little bit. In one of the artichokes, I put something that I learned from the French Laundry Per Se book. Shout out to those guys. They do something called a veg blanc, which is a combination of uh, ascorbic acid or citric acid. I don't remember which one it is. I think it's ascorbic acid, salt, and sugar. And I want to say the ratio that they have in the book is like 300 grams of salt, 250 sugar, and 50 grams of ascorbic acid. You mix the dry, and then you rehydrate it at a 6% solution. So 60 grams of the veg blanc, the powdered mix, to 1,000 grams, a kilo of water by weight. So at 6%, and then that'll keep your vegetables perfectly seasoned. It'll keep your artichokes white so they don't discolor. But I cooked them both. Anyway, back to the artichokes. I cooked them both, and the ones that were in the bag were beautiful. They were more beautiful. The vegetables retained more snap. The artichokes were wider and firmer, and they were perfectly seasoned throughout. The vegetables looked better and cleaner, right? The ones that I braised traditionally on the stove, the carrots were a little bit mushy. The onions when you cut them in half, the petals started to open up a little bit. You see flecks of thyme that's now kind of chunked in between the leaves. It wasn't as beautiful. It's 10 times tastier though. So the one I cooked traditionally on the stove, the end result, not only was it faster, it was 10 times more delicious than the sous vide result. And so that kind of confirmed what I was already thinking. And now I had a couple of chefs around me when I was doing this yesterday. We were tasting the dish to see what everyone thought. And one of the chefs said, "Well, that's just comforting. That tastes like a hug." And I thought that's pretty good. That's a good way to say it. Like that tastes like a hug. It's comforting. He said the other one, and we all agreed, the other one looks doesn't taste as good. And so when we go back to the conversation of food and we're talking aesthetics and Instagram, and is it gonna look good? And could we place some petite greens and some nasturtiums on it? And it might look better, but the other one tastes way better, even though it doesn't look as good. So if you remove the incentive being social media and the incentive being an award or impressing other chefs, when you remove that incentive and you're the only incentive then is it delicious and do they want to eat it again? I think that reframes how people think about food. And I promise you, food would not look the same if we knew what the true incentive was.
I agree with you on that. Because now you're just focused on making sure that the specific ingredient is doing its you're doing its due diligence and you're respecting it, right? Um, on the topic of respecting your ingredients, many chefs talk about it. I talk about it, especially in an aspect of my where I previously worked at my last restaurant. We had a bison ranch, and we would take the bison to go get slaughtered, and then we would get the specific cuts, or maybe sometimes we would also get ground beef from it, and shape our burgers. And then we got the bones back, and then the some of the bones would go to the Native American tribes that are around the area,
Mhm,
donate them, and so nothing went to waste.
mhm,
And I made sure that my team knew that nothing of this specific animal that gave its life for us, was respected, and that we didn't throw anything away. You
mhm.
know, how do you interpret the respect? Is it about preserving the integrity, or is there a deeper reverence for their role in the story? What you're trying to tell in your dish,
Well, we're talking about a lot of things. So we're talking about an animal life. Sometimes we're talking about plant life.
right?
Sometimes we're talking about it was raised humanely on a farm, and sometimes we're talking about it was caught in the wild. It was, it was hunted, and other times we're talking about it grew hydroponically, or did it grow? Um, was it in the ocean? So I think you could get a little too caught up in thinking like, you know, how are we going to respect this? To pay tribute to this, that, and the other. The way that you respect it is when it arrives to you, right? You want to make sure that you're putting your money uh, where your values are. So if you value organic, then buy organic. Like that, first of all, that's how you're going to respect it. You're going to put your money where your value is. So if you want to see a um, more sustainable ingredients, more organic ingredients, and that's what you should be buying, period. Right? Because that shows what your true value is. You value what you spend your money on and what you do. Other than that, it's just lip service. You can talk all the shit you want, but if you say organic's important, but you don't buy anything organic, well, then your actions are speaking louder than your words. So start there. Start with supporting what your values are as a chef. Then when it arrives, now it's on your cutting board. Well, there's a different way to respect that, and that is by utilizing all the trim. So let's just use this as an example. You're cleaning up a piece of beef. Maybe there's some trim that is muscle. Maybe there's some trim that is fat, right? So maybe you turn the fat into tallow, and you could now use this to cook with, maybe to baste meat with after it's cooked. After you slice it, you could baste it with some tallow. Maybe you're frying your French fries with it, whatever the case may be. But that has a purpose. Then there's all this extra usable trim? Are you grinding that up for family meal? What are you doing with that? And then there's the primal, which the center cut, which you're going to sell and you're going to make the most amount of money on. But or are you the chef that just throws all that other stuff away? Well, that's not respecting the product. There's also the vegetable trim. So you're cleaning an onion, and maybe you work in a restaurant where you have to make a perfect brunoise. Um, and in a lot of cases, a perfect brunoise requires you to go petal by petal, and you have to square off the petal so that you could cut it and then turn it and then cut it that way. And then there's a little piece at the end that doesn't get used. And then there was the two pieces that you trimmed off. Well, what do you do with those? Do you throw those away? Do you repurpose them for stock? Do they get sweated down into a soup? I don't know. So again, respecting the ingredient is also in how you treat the preparation. And then the third part in respecting the ingredient. So again, put your money where your mouth is. Support. Put your money towards the things that you truly believe in. Then respect the product when it arrives and treat it right in the preparation. Don't be wasteful if you could avoid it. Even if it turns into compost, do something with it, right? Ferment it, whatever. Don't just throw it away. And then the third part, and this is kind of the end result, is does it fucking taste good? Period. Like, don't buy the best cow and then save all the trim and then cook it like shit. Right? Make sure it tastes good. You don't want the guest sending it back because you overcooked it or because it wasn't seasoned. Now you just wasted that. So that is also part of it, is make sure you cook it right so it tastes delicious. We're losing the delicious aspect of cooking.
So you're sponsored by
Foods and Season?
Foods in Season, yes.
Right. So they do a lot of wild ingredients. That's their whole thing, wild seafood, wild mushrooms, and then a lot of like really hard to find unique ingredients. Like one of the things I was cooking with yesterday was a smoked soy sauce. That's really, really beautiful product as well. Or they have like a lot of their bleach products, the vinegars and things that they do. So they're very unique. But then they also have crazy varieties of mushrooms, whether we're talking morels or chanterelles or whatever it is that they're talking about. And then their seafood is great. Sometimes they get like BC spot prawns for a short period of time, and they're beautiful. You don't got to do much to them. So where do I stand with ingredients? Well, it's a couple of different ways. If money's no object, I'm going to get the best ingredients. If money is no object, but again, I'm getting hired to consult at a place. It's like they want to buy the most expensive things and do this, that, and the other. They're about to close because they have no business. And I might tell them like, hey, I know you want to do that. I know you want to serve this, but you have two options. You either need to raise your pricing because you're losing a lot of money by buying, the best money can buy, but you're not selling it at the right margin, or you need to reconsider where you're buying your food. It's one or the other. So, my values, I could say, I'm not an active chef anymore. So my values are going to be different at home, and the way I cook and the way I would advise people in general. But also sometimes I also live in the real world. And I know sometimes, being perfect isn't always a reality. And anyone that tells you otherwise, like, oh no, we're perfect, it's all organic, it's all horse, it's bullshit.
When you're cooking or when you're doing these R&Ds, do you find that certain ingredients almost kind of like speak to you? You know, so for instance, the cream and strawberries, right?
Yeah.
They go hand in hand together.
Mhm.
Are there different pairings that you're looking forward to doing at the Chefs Who Shaped Us event, where you might or are all these pairings new or going to be kind of like a how do you call it? Or man, let me rephrase this question. So we have already you guys you already have pairings like the strawberries and cream, which are basic and standard going together, right? Because you like you mentioned, right? Sometimes the gun is better than the swords and the flashiness. Are you going to be implementing anything differently with this specific type of dinner in order for you to be able to stand out versus the other, chefs who are going to be there, or how is that going to
Well,
work?
it's just me. So
Okay.
it's just me and them. So there's no other chefs. Uh, I'm the guest and they're hosting me. So yes, we're doing a dinner in tandem, but there's no other outside chefs coming in.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
They're doing other outside chefs on different days, but not while I am there. My approach as far as this goes, and I know you and I have spoken about this a lot. I've probably talked about it too much on my podcast, and I've definitely exhausted all my friend group bringing this idea up. But I do feel like when it comes to food, I want food to taste delicious first, and I don't care if it's familiar or not, because sometimes familiar is good. I'll give you an example. Two soups in particular that I absolutely love. One is lobster bisque. I love lobster bisque. I used to eat lobster bisque as a young cook. I would have a piece of bread and I'd get my lobster bisque in a deli cup at the end of the night. And I would eat it up if there was any leftover lobster bisque that we were serving. I used to love it. I love lobster bisque. Something else I love is a classic French onion soup. Delicious, right? The onions are caramelized. They're so deep and rich and flavorful. Maybe there's some sherry wine in there. Um, and either a beef stock or a chicken stock, and it's rich and you could taste it. And then there's the bread and the crusty cheese that's bubbly over the top. It's like, man, that is amazing and comforting to me, those two things. And I've never tasted another chef's rendition of either of those two things that's better than the original, like the deconstructed onion soup, or the lobster bisque that's done this way, but we're putting a Thai spin. Like, it's never as good as the original. I've never tasted it and been like, you know what? Stop making lobster bisque. Stop making onion soup. This way forward. I've never thought that. And so I think at a certain point, I think a lot of chefs come to a point where I'm at. Marco Pierre White was very famous for having his existential crisis and giving his stars back and saying, now he's really focused on more simple food and Mother Nature's the artist. You see it with Alain Ducasse, what he's doing. You see a lot of chefs that eventually come to this conclusion that I'm coming to now. And I've been thinking about it for a while, but I've really come to the conclusion lately, like more so than ever, is like, it needs to be delicious first. And I don't care so much about my ego, right? I could care less that it's been done before. I could care less that it's a derivative of another chef. If I'm making, Joel Robuchon style mashed potatoes or something like pommes puree, I could care less if people know that I'm taking it from Joel Robuchon. It's delicious. And I want to serve people delicious food at this point. And I want to eat delicious food myself. I went to a restaurant the other day. I'll share this with you and your audience. Um, and I knew the chef there. They were friends, and we've worked together in the past. And they really wanted to impress me with what they were doing and show off and like, chef, look at how far I've come. Right. That was kind of what they were after. Like, chef, look at how far I've come as a chef. And they served me courses that were just not good. It was extremely, extremely bitter, but they were trying to be creative with bitter. And then there was another one that was extremely acidic and fermented. And it wasn't delicious. And the reason, and hopefully they're not offended by me sharing this story. I won't say who, but the reason I was uh, upset is like like I'm happy that you have all these techniques that you want to show me. And when we started having, they sat down at the table with me afterwards, and we started having a conversation about the food, and I'm giving them the feedback. Um, and they're like, but people need to understand this food, and people need to eat like this. And I'm thinking, do they? Like, why are you the arbiter of taste? Like, what makes you think at 25 years old that you're the arbiter of taste of what people should be enjoying? Like, I'm telling you, it's not good. And just because it's creative and like you found a new way to make something that shouldn't be bitter, bitter, or something that shouldn't be sour, sour, just because you discovered that yourself doesn't mean you're right. And it takes a lot of hubris on the part of a chef to think that they are. It, because they understood that it's not delicious. But in their mind, it's not about delicious. It's about being interesting and creative and forward thinking. It's like, dude, you're trying to change the world in the bistro that you're that you're in. Like, make it delicious first and then work backwards from there. Um, and again, if you keep asking me about food, chef, I will keep beating this point home because it's the one thing that's really missing from the culinary world today is we're not making delicious the most important part of the equation. A squared plus B squared equals delicious, or times C squared, whatever the Pythagorean theorem.
I mean, you're absolutely right. When I first started cooking, not first started cooking, when I first became a sous chef, the first thing my dad told me was, and he's not a cook. He's just he does construction work.
Mhm.
Um, he said, "It's not what you like, it's what the customer likes. So
Right,
make sure you focus your menu based off what the customer wants and what they like." And I mean, I've been following that advice. I know it's super basic. I know it's super like common sense, but at the end of the day, sometimes we need to hear the common sense all over again, right?
right.
Um, and so this what last month or yeah, last month I did a wrestling event. I
Yeah,
wasn't going to do
I love seeing it, by the way.
thank you. I wasn't going to do a foie gras. I wasn't gonna cook any of that stuff, right? I'm not what they want at the show is they want a good burger, they want good, tacos, and,
Mhm,
maybe I'll add my spin of what nachos are, or nachos for them, and it did extremely well.
mhm.
It's not the style that I always like to cook, although I'm Mexican, I love doing tacos, but it's not something that I want to do every time, right? But it's what the client wants, right? It's what our guests want, and especially during when they're watching a show like that, they kinda wanna have finger food in case a wrestler gets thrown at them.
Right,
Um, so that's pretty much where, I guess I could add where I use my dad's advice, as obvious as it was, you just have to remember, like, it's not what you want as a chef, it's what the customers want and why they're coming, they're going in there for.
right. And I have to give a little bit of a disclaimer because I don't want people to take what I'm saying as the absolute truth, which it's not. It's just my opinion. Because a restaurant does live and die off a lot of things, and a lot of those things are they relevant? And in order to be relevant, you have to cook on trend, and in order to get written about, you have to cook on trend. In order to get noticed by the people that are handing out awards, you have to be, playing the game, so to speak. Your food has to look beautiful on Instagram so it attracts new customers. I get it. Like I'm not saying that all this other stuff is bad because it's not. But what I am saying is, can you do both? Ultimately, can you do both? And I think, can you make something that's delicious, and also beautiful, and also technical, and also satisfy you creatively? But if you're just satisfying yourself creatively, but you're not satisfying the customer, um, with the experience of delicious food, then something's missing. You could accomplish all those things, and that's really the biggest point that I'm trying to make is you could accomplish it being beautiful, you could accomplish it being Instagrammable, but it also has to be delicious. And that if it's only Instagrammable, it's it's still not there. And I think that's the conversation that needs to happen. Is is it delicious? Great. Is it Instagrammable? Great. Is it trend? Like then you can work backwards. But ultimately, you need to cook with delicious intent.
In your opinion, what does it truly mean to understand an ingredient?
A lot. So I think let's take an apple as an example, right? You think you know the apple until you taste the red delicious apple and it tastes like shit, right? Because you've been eating Fuji apples that are great and they go great in a salad and they're perfectly crisp. And then you get a Mount Rose apple and you split it open and it's pink and that blows your mind because you're thinking, whoa, when did apples turn pink? And then you take that apple and then you smoke it and it gets mushy and the texture is different and the flavor is different. And you think, wow, I didn't know apples could be this. And then you turn it into sauce, right? And then you make a liquor out of it and you make Calvados, right? So you do all these variations and you make apple juice and then it oxidizes and it's no longer green. right? You use green apples and now you have brown apple juice. What happened, right? And then you add a citric acid to it and then it turns green, right? And then you take hydrocolloids to it and you make gels, right? You add agar to it and you cook it and you chill it and you make a fluid gel. And you take something else, sodium alginate or whatever it is, right? Alginate and to make spheres. What is it? I'm drawing a blank. I was on such a beautiful rant. But anyway, so you do you spherify the food through reverse spherification. Now you have a completely different texture with the apple juice. And then you learn that there's an endless way to cook the apple, right? But sometimes the apple doesn't need any of that. You just taste it and it's good, right? So understanding the ingredient is knowing when it needs to be juiced, when you need to add citric acid to the juice so it doesn't oxidize, when you need to add an alginate to it, when you need to add agar to it, when you need to smoke it, when you need to grill it, when you need to ferment it, and when you need to do nothing with it. Understanding an ingredient you'll understand all those different things. And I think if you want to be a good chef, it's understanding when a specific ingredient needs manipulation through your technical expertise and understanding when you are manipulating it to its detriment.
I really like that answer. I really do. So
Thank
the I want to get into entrepreneurship and the culinary world, the reality of entrepreneurship. We spoke a couple days ago on was it a couple days ago? Yeah, it was a couple days
you.
ago. Where you said followers don't always translate to revenue,
Right.
and converting them into cash isn't easy as it seems.
Mhm.
Do you think the art of monetizing your passion dilutes the authenticity of the art itself?
It depends on what your end goal is. I think, like, why couldn't you do your art and make a living off of it? So let's just say you're an artist and you work a 9 to 5 that you despise. Why wouldn't you want to monetize your art? Like, to me, that seems like you're getting paid now to do what you do. You should be fairly compensated for things that you're exceptional at. I think the problem then becomes when people want to get compensated for things that they're not exceptional at. You know, I think let's take let's take the idea of catering. You're a chef and you want to monetize your catering business. And let's say you've curated a social media following. And that's great. You have 100,000 followers on Instagram, but none of your content applies to catering. That's not going to convert, right? So if you have an audience, what is the purpose that you're trying to build an audience first? Um, Are you just building an audience for vanity, just so you could say you have 100,000 followers? Or are you building an audience because it's converting to something? Or do you have a purpose? Is it a nonprofit? Is it your business? Is it your catering business? And if you have an Instagram that has 100,000 followers and it's for your catering business, but you never talk about catering, and your audience is all, because we're chefs and cooks, your audience is all chefs and cooks. Well, maybe it's the wrong audience. Maybe you need to be catering to people that pay for private caterers, right? Maybe you need to be catering, you're curating your social media to people that are, um, living in the hills, in the mansions, right? And cooking the food that they want to eat. Because the person that wants to eat um, in their mansion with their friends at the at the beautiful dinner, they don't want to eat the super soigné stuff with the broken white sauce and the green oil that you're cooking for to impress the chefs, right? They might want to see you cook a beautiful flank steak with some roasted vegetables, right? They might want to see something completely different. Now the chef don't want to see that. The chef are thinking, why are you showing me this pan of roasted vegetables that are, you know, so rustic looking? And why are you showing me this big ambrosia salad? But the person that you're trying to get business from might want to see that. So I think curating your audience to what it is that you're trying to do for from a business standpoint is probably a smart thing, because followers don't equal successful business if you have the wrong followers, right?
Yeah. Uh, another side to it, I'd like to add on to your point is, my brothers are personal trainers,
Hmm.
and they love working out. They love doing the sports, medicine. They love doing the sports, the what is it called? The strength and conditioning training and all that fun stuff, right? Talking about
Right.
supplements. And one thing that they've noticed and they told me is that anytime they give out that free advice or that free session or something like that, maybe sometimes they'll give away like a free month and be like, "Hey, come on in." When they do anything that's free, the client or the person who's asking for that advice is
Hmm.
less inclined to follow through.
Hmm.
And I think in what you're doing with books like Bad Cooks Everywhere and, The Art of The
Kitchen art.
Kitchen War, um, with you being able to monetize that, I think people would be more inclined to follow through with advice because they've already paid for that, you know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Same thing with your consultations, right? You could do it out of the goodness of your heart and go to a restaurant and ask them and tell them, "Hey, maybe you should do this differently, do this differently," but are they really gonna take you seriously since they didn't pay you, right? They're just getting the ideas,
Mhm.
and may or may not follow through with it. But if they pay you to consult and they're paying you to, guide them in the right direction, they're more inclined to follow through because they've already invested that money in not only to the restaurant, but as well as for you. Uh,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's pretty much what I wanted to add. Um,
They're all excellent points that you had, and I'll tell you, sometimes I think early on with Chef's PSA, I get a ton of DMs for advice, so I always used to respond. I don't respond as much as I'd like to anymore just because I'm extremely busy, and the amount of DMs that I get is much more than I used to get. Um, but, it's funny because a lot of people will ask me for advice. Like, I've said that in the podcast. Like, what you're asking, I've already explained in a podcast or I've said it in my book. But sometimes I feel like I hate just deferring people um, to a book or my podcast. But when I'm recording an episode of my podcast or if I'm writing a book, I'm in a different mental state than in a DM. So you're going to get better advice from my book than you will just asking me. Because when I'm writing, I I am completely in the zone, only thinking about the best way I could give this, right? But when you're DMing me for advice, I'm, yelling at my dog and, not in a mean way, like, "Get inside," for people that are listening, like, I love my dog. Um, but, I'm distracted. I might be texting and, creating a meme at the same time and, responding to 5 different people, and I'm like, "Shit, I gotta answer really quick." So you're not getting the best answer there. The best answer is in the content that I created deliberately, intentionally. That's where the best content is. It's in the podcast, or it's in one of the books, or it's in paying me to consult, right? You could send me a DM and say, "What do you think of my menu?" And I'll look at it, but I'm only going to look at it for 2 minutes and give you a very quick thought. Or you could pay me my fee and I could spend all day looking at it and give you a 10-page summary. It's different, right? You get what you pay for. And with me, uh, right, I mean, I get a lot of questions, so a lot of my answers are very short, and brief, and I might just defer you back to something that I've already said or I've already written. But if you get paid, you're going to get a completely different experience because now I have no other distractions other than the one thing that I'm working on for the next few hours.
yeah, no, I see exactly what you mean. I've been also getting a lot of DMs on how to, do certain things, how to deal with certain people or how to, and it's just it's I don't wanna sound like I'm coming off rude, but like, we've already discussed this, right? Where it's like, "Okay, well, check out my previous Words from a Chef," series on
Mhm.
how to handle toxic, work environments, right? And the answer I always give as well is, you know, um, have we tried talking to the chef? And if the chef isn't doing anything about it, maybe and you're not happy and it's continuing, maybe it's time for you to move on and find a better spot for you to help, right? And I had a previous my last podcast, which was with Jana. Um, she was, essentially talking about how the toxicity follows you sometimes, right? It's not always the other person. Sometimes it's you. And if you can't figure out a way or a solution to fix uh that toxicity at this one spot, then you're going to take it with you at the next spot and then at the next spot, and it's going to continue to fester essentially. But that's pretty much what she had said. I don't want to. I'm not trying to quote her by verbatim, but that's what I got from it. But yeah. Um, so in this era of entrepreneurship, it seems like
Mhm.
everyone's trying to build a brand.
Yeah.
So I remember Instagram back in the day when Instagram used to be about family and all these things, and now you scroll on there and everybody's trying to sell you something, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, how much of it do you think is truly an authentic expression of yourself, versus what the market demands? I know that you
Talking specifically about Chef's PSA? Because I can
yeah,
speak. I can't really speak to anyone else's.
yeah, because I know I'm not saying that you're not authentic because I know you are. I know your intentions are authentic. I just wanted to
Mhm.
say that. And
Thank you. Thank you.
because
Thank you for
whenever
not calling me a I've never
right, because well, see, the thing is that when I wrote this question, I was very like, I don't want to sound rude, and I'm not trying to make you sound like you're not authentic because I know you are, and especially with the phone calls that we have,
Yeah.
you're even before this podcast, we started talking about my idea, and the fact that you brought these potential hardships that are going to come across my way in the future if I do move forward with it.
Mhm.
You're giving me those ideas where like, okay, well, maybe you're right. Like, how would I navigate through this? And you do help. Um, but yeah, I get for Chef's PSA, like, how much of it is it a truly authentic expression of yourself versus what the market is demanding?
Um, it truly is an expression of myself. Like, I met someone the other day, a chef that, listened to the podcast, and, we met up and, he's a chef also. We had a great conversation. And what was interesting, he said something interesting. He said, "You're exactly in real life how you are on the podcast." You've had conversations with me before, and maybe you could agree with that. Like, I'm exactly the same person on the podcast that I am in real life. When I was a chef, I was probably a little bit more serious and toned down. Only because I understood, like, I'm protecting the restaurants and whatever, right? The brand of wherever I happen to be. Where here, I am the brand. Chef's PSA is my brand, and I'm not saying I'm going to be the face of it forever. I think eventually it'll evolve into something else. But it is a business. And I don't want people to misconstrue that this is a charity. Um, my business is helping chefs, but that is a business. That is my business is helping chefs. And when I left being a chef, an active chef, and I moved into this, I said I'm going to go into the space of helping chefs because I don't think that exists. And I think what I know as a chef, I think I could monetize this knowledge, right? If I if it was just for free, it wouldn't last long, right? I wouldn't have time to do it if it was for free because I'd have to get a real job. I wouldn't be able to write books and do podcasts and do all this if it was for free and there was no income coming in. It's not a something for nothing world at the end of the day, no matter which way you slice it. Um, I have to give you value in exchange for you hopefully returning something back to me. And that value that you're returning back to me could be in the form of you're buying a book that supports me to continue putting on podcasts, right? When people purchase a book, yes, I'm giving you knowledge. I'm hoping that I wrote a book that you find valuable. And I put a lot of effort into the writing so that you can find value in it, in hopes that you continue to fund me so I could continue bringing you value next week and the week after that and daily, right? Um, if I'm selling something, whether it's a book or, a Just Cook hoodie or hat or whatever, well, like that's how I pay the bills. That's what people don't understand. And I'll give away a little secret here on your show. Every podcast that I put on costs me $1,000 per episode. For every episode I put up, it's roughly $1,000 my money that I pay. No one funds it. Like there's not this rich investor behind me that's giving me money to put on a show. It's me. It's my money. It's my personal money that I put into every episode. It's $1,000 on average per episode. And how do you think I pay for that? Right? Like I don't mean to be insulting to anybody, but I think people need to understand that like it's not free. If it was free, yeah, we'd be having a different conversation, but it does cost money to run this. It does cost money for me to sit down for 3 hours every day to come up with an Instagram post. It's not 3 hours, but anyway, it's about an hour. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is like, what's today's chef's PSA? Sometimes it's not a new one. Sometimes it's an old one that I'm like, let's bring that one back because there's new audience and I haven't said that in a while. Sometimes it's something that I got to write original. And if you think about this, like I've posted almost a new chef's PSA for 3 years. That's almost 900 different chef's PSAs that I've put up. And I'm not as consistent as I was. I used to do it every single day, but that's a lot of knowledge that I'm putting out there, and I'm putting out stuff that I believe in. And then so I'll write the chef's PSA. And so I used to get called out before, like if I would misspell something, because I wouldn't have anyone check. It was like, yeah, that looks right. Boom, boom, boom. I typed it up. I read it once, and then there's like a misspelling that I didn't catch. But now there's a spell check. Like that put the spell check before I hit post. And so like I'll do the static caption daily every day when I wake up. So there's the static caption, like today's chef's PSA was, like don't smoke cigarettes in bed or something. Um, and then I'll do two AI images after that I turn into comics. Well, knowing how to create the AI images, right? So that takes a skill. And then is the AI image reinforcing the point to the slide before? Most of the time I try to. A lot of times it's like I just think this is funny. And maybe people will get this point or maybe they won't. And then the fourth tab, because it's a carousel, usually the fourth tab is like, and if you want to support, buy the book or listen to the podcast. Like you don't have to go all the way to the fourth tab. You could just look at the next three and keep scrolling, or you could be, supportive of what I'm doing because you enjoy it. And that's how I make money, by hitting the like button, leaving 5 stars, leaving a review, a positive review. If you have a bad review, if anyone has a bad review of my podcast, put it on Ishmael's podcast. My podcast, good. Ishmael, I don't know. No, I'm just kidding. But but you understand that, like putting a review on a podcast increases my reach, which allows me to fund this. And again, for most of the time with Chef's PSA, the podcast, it's made $0. Most of the podcast has made $0, if not sometimes negative. Because like I said, it cost me $1,000 per episode. I've been doing this now for 3 years. So I would say a lot of the business is just to keep the business going, just so I could produce a podcast next week. And people don't understand that. So I share that. That's a little bit of a business rant. Now the business is more sustainable with other ventures that I do. I do public speaking, consulting, and all that. But the podcast itself doesn't really, it's not like we're driving Rolls Royces because we have a podcast. That's not why we do it. We do it to bring value and hopefully help the next generation of cooks and chefs. But for people that think it's cheap, it's not. And that's just my cost for studio rental, etc.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from with that, because even recording this, it does cost some money to be able to do. And I have zero income coming in. This is usually coming out of my own pocket as well. But I wanted to ask you, at the beginning of Chef's PSA, when you first started this, um, when did you know when was the right time to start monetizing?
Well, I think I monetized from day one. So I wrote a book roughly around the same time that I started posting the Chef's PSA, like the daily caption. I don't know if they were like right at the exact same time, but it was pretty close. I released a book shortly afterwards. I never written a book. I was like, "Ah, I'm going to write a book." I didn't write it so I could make money. My interests. This is something I never talk about on the podcast. I have other interests outside of being a chef, and I have other ways that I make money. I have other businesses. Chef's PSA is just one of. It's the front. It's the front facing one. But I do other things too. Um, I didn't think Chef's PSA was going to be my business initially. It just turned into my business. And it's now my most full time of my business. It's double time actually. Where my other things that I do are a little bit easier to run. I don't have to think about them so much. Um, but I would say that initially Chef's PSA started monetizing with the first book, but I wasn't trying to like push it in everyone's face. It's like there's some value here. If you find value in it, buy it. Right? It helps me keep bringing you value if you support what I do. And I like writing. Like I truly do like writing. Chef's PSA, going back to one of your earlier questions, Chef's PSA scratches most of my creative itches. I love to write. I get to write. I get to write every single day now. I write a caption. Um, I get spell checker to make sure everything's spelled correctly, but I get to write. I get to express my thoughts. I get to talk to chefs. I enjoy talking to chefs. These are my friends. So sometimes that's the only time I get to hang out with them, is when I get to talk to them. Right. So I get to enjoy that. I get to have thoughtful dialogue with, yourself and other chefs. This is something that I enjoy. My mind is running at 100 miles an hour usually, so this allows me to get thoughts out there, and they're not all right, but sometimes just me talking through them allows me to come to a better conclusion. Um, I'm also allowed to express myself, through comedy because I think I'm funny. A lot of people might not know that, but I think I'm funny. So a lot of those memes that I put up, I could be a lot funnier, but it's like, I know not everyone can take a joke. Um, but like sometimes when I put the comics up, it's my way of I've always wanted to write a comic book. So that's why I started doing it. It's like I want to do this. So I get to scratch a lot of my creative itches in things that I know about. Like, and I also get to help people, which is one of my biggest things that I enjoy. It's probably the biggest thing that I enjoy is helping chefs and cooks. So Chef's PSA has allowed me to fulfill most of the things, right? 99% of the things that I like to do, I get to do with Chef's PSA: writing, helping people, mentoring, talking, socializing, creating. It's all there. It scratches a lot of the itches.
So entrepreneurship is often romanticized. People driving fancy cars and, you know, and just experiencing life the way they love to, right?
Mhm.
Behind the scenes, like you and I both know, it's very difficult
Yeah.
to run a business, especially when I know you're not just starting out because you've been doing this for a while, but for instance, for myself, I'm just starting out. I've only been doing this for 3 years, as a private chef and caterer, but it's still a lot of work that goes behind it. What's the most unexpected challenge you face as a content creator and entrepreneur, and how has that shifted your the way you approach your work?
Um, I'm a bit of an autodidact, so every I was a chef forever, but I didn't know how I don't have a marketing background. I don't have an editing background. I don't have a writing background. I don't have a publishing background. I don't have a media background like in terms of podcasting. So everything from the podcast to authoring, to writing and marketing, sales copy, all of that, I had to teach myself. Like I don't have anyone that has taught me this. Everything, even designing. Most recently, I've built the Chef's PSA store, which is shop.chefspsa.com, where you could buy clothing, hats. Like I designed all of that. I learned how to design clothing. I learned how to build the website. I learned how to create the storefront. I built all. Like no one's helping me. Um, and I think what people don't understand when they want to get into the entrepreneurial world is that one, you have to act quickly and you can't just sit with an idea for long and not do anything with it. So when the idea hits you, you got to do it. Like you got an idea, build the store, go build the store, start selling it. And I talk to a lot of people that are in the idea phase for quite some time and haven't done anything. And they're like, well, I still don't know enough how to build a Shopify store or whatever's holding them back. But what they don't understand is that you're also not going to know how to build a Shopify store the day that you decide you're, and it's not going to be a perfect website. I have the Chef's PSA store version 1.0, which I closed and I've opened 2.0. But I couldn't open 2.0 with better images, better quality, better products, better shipping, better customer service. I couldn't do that if I hadn't opened 1.0 and made all those mistakes, right? So the sooner you start doing it, the sooner you'll start learning, and it's constant evolution and constant learning. Like when I wrote my first book, I don't know if I have a copy of it here on my bookshelf or I'd pull it out, but the cover was really bad. I didn't know how to design a cover. Now I could. Now people pay me like separately. People pay me to design book covers because I know how to do it now. But I didn't know how to do that initially. But that book cover has evolved. Like the book right here, Bad Cooks Everywhere. You can see it on my bookshelf. I recently redesigned the book cover on that one too because I realized, the allegory of the little chick with the eggs and the snakes was getting lost on people. They didn't understand. So like I redesigned the book cover. So you don't know how to do that stuff until you start doing it daily, and then you improve. Um, and I think what people don't understand about the entrepreneurial life is that I'm in constant learning mode. I'm in constant failure mode, and I'm in constant improvement mode all the time. Like, okay, that failed. Don't do that again. Learn from that. You said that rubbed people the wrong way. Maybe you need to learn how to get your point across a little bit better. I'm editing a podcast right now. And it came out terrible because I'm realizing that I ranted about what I was ranting about earlier for too long, and I didn't let my guests speak, right? And they're looking at me like, "Are you ever going to shut up?" And so this is feedback where I'm saying like too much or too much and all these filler words. So there's a part of it that's the creative part, and there's the part of it that's uh, the analyzing part on how you can make little improvements. And then just one last couple of points on the entrepreneurial thing is it's a lot more work for me now than it was when I was a chef. Um, I work from the moment I wake up after I have my coffee and I play, a couple of little video games or whatever. And I get in front of the computer and I start working. From the moment you see that Chef's PSA post go up in the morning, I've been working for 3 hours before that, and I'm going to stop working when it's time to go to bed every day, 7 days a week. Now, of course, there's things that happen in between and meetings and things like that, but it's all work. And that's what people don't understand. Like they think it's all fun. Like, no, I am working from the moment I wake up to the moment I go to bed. My leisure time is business, meaning if I'm going to dinner, I'm going because it's business. I'm not going just to have fun unless it's with a chef friend or a friend that I haven't seen in a long time. But when I'm going out to dinner with the chefs, like we're talking business, right? It's all work all the time, and responding to DMs, that's work, right? It's I'm helping people, but that's my job. My job is to help people. And then the last point that I'll mention. So the hours are different, but also the support is different. The people that you think are going to support you, you'd be surprised don't. And the people that are your biggest supporters, you've never met. Some of the people that help Chef's PSA the most, I've never met in real life. But they're my biggest supporters and my biggest fans. People that I know, family members, have never even read any of my books. Or it's funny. I was texting one of my friends the other day, and he says to me, "You should do a podcast on food cost." And I was like, I did a 3-part series. And he's like, "Oh, sorry, my bad." And I said, "Have you ever listened to my podcast?" He's like, "No, how many episodes have you done?" And I said, I'm on episode 150. And then he's like, "Oh, damn, I should probably listen." He used to be my sous chef. You know what I mean? Like he's a friend. We have drinks together on occasion. He had no idea. Oh, and by the way, he says you should do podcast, like you should convert Chef's PSA to a podcast on leadership and management. I was like, that's what it is. Like, have you not listened to one fucking episode? And his response was like so genuine. He's like, "No, I haven't. My bad." It's like not even one episode. Like not even one episode. He's like, "Yeah, some of my cooks do, but I've never listened to it." And it's like the point that I'm trying to make is like the people that likely should be your biggest supporters probably aren't. And your biggest supporters are going to be people that you've never met, and you need to treat them like gold, because they're keeping your business and your dream alive.
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a true friend.
But that's how you know they're a true friend. They don't support you.
And he was honest. He was blunt.
Yeah.
Um, a couple maybe last week or 2, I had, um, posted a picture of me doing, like, work on the line or whatever, right, on my pop-up at the wrestling event, and I'm not sure if you read the description, um, but it said that I essentially lined out what my day looks like when it comes down to these types of pop-up events, right? Because I don't have a a a line cook team. I don't have, the type of transportation. So, you know, the night before the event happens, I'm number 1, I'm prepping, uh, and then, I'm doing the grocery list, and then I'm doing the grocery shopping, then I'm going to, um, the prep, then I unload my car, load my car, or take the stuff out of my car, and then start setting it up my station and so forth. And then after that, drive to the location, which costs gas, and then setting up, and then making sure that everything is all ready to go. I'm going on, right? But it's a lot of work for one person to do.
Mhm.
And then on top of that, when I get home, I still have admin work to do, right?
Right.
I still have to set aside money for California estate taxes. I still have to set aside money to pay my cashier. I still have to set aside money to pay for the venue that I'm working in, right? And
Right.
so
Right. Right.
at the end of the day, sometimes I'll come out with $300 with, off of like 5 hour or not 5 hours, for 2 days worth of work,
Mhm.
and it's a lot of work, and it sometimes sucks, but at the end of the day, I enjoy it, right?
Mhm.
Because I get to see people, enjoy their food. I get to listen to people tell me, "Hey, like this was like probably the best taco I've ever had," or whatever it is,
Mhm.
and it means the world to me when I hear that, because it's just like, okay, cool, like it makes it worth it right now, right?
Right.
And eventually, I know that my work is going to get to a point where I'll be consistently busy to
Uh-huh.
a point where I will be able to charge what I'd like to be paid to do. But because these pop-up events, I'm very selective on what I do, where I do them and how I'm doing them and stuff like that. So, but it is a lot of work behind that. And then on top of that, doing the podcast and doing, this Instagram post and the editing. And I'm not an
Mhm.
editing, you know, person either, but I'm learning as I go, and I'm trying my best to continue to make my stuff entertaining, I guess.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there's a balance, and um there's sometimes when I know a post is gonna go viral, like before I post it, like this is the one, and there's other times I know, like, I'm not posting this to go viral, I'm actually posting this one to help.
Right.
You know, right? I'll amp up, or ratchet up, the cheekiness a little bit, or the way I frame it, to because I know it'll do better. And other times it's like I just want the message. So really focus on the caption, or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, social media is a business too, right? I mean, that's how you're curating attention, and we live in an attention economy, and hopefully, so you have attention now. What are you going to do with it, right?
I'm hoping to monetize soon.
Hmm.
I'm not even monetized anything, like, I'm just doing this to see where it goes, and, you know, I enjoy it. The editing portion of things, like, sometimes it takes me 3 hours to edit a 30-second video.
Sure. I remember those days. Now I used to really geek out and try to make a good video. Now it's like, here's a clip, here's a caption, here's a good hip hop song.
Yeah. No, I mean, your posts are simple, they're easy to read, and it's just, and I always enjoy it,
Yeah.
and that's
Well,
why
here's
I share it.
my writing style is, it took me a minute to figure out my own writing style. But the way I post is like, there's an attention grabbing chef's PSA, and then there's a caption below it that usually reinforces the point of, okay, if this doesn't make sense, read the caption. The gold is really in the caption, not necessarily in the main quote. Um, but I have a certain way that I write. I space my sentences a certain way. I've tried to make them shorter so they're not really lengthy. I'm constantly iterating on the way I write because my captions used to be very long, like books. Um, and I'm like, yeah, it doesn't need to be that long. I don't know if anyone reads it. Sometimes I put on the bottom of the caption, like, if you got all the way here, like, send me a DM and I'll send you a book. Like, I don't know if anyone's reading this far. Um, and I realized that people weren't. So I was like, okay, shorten it a little bit. Or people would comment something that's in the caption that I know that was getting lost. So there is a certain art to it. And I'm constantly rapid prototyping to figure out what's the best way to communicate my message um, to the chef world, because ultimately I want to help cooks become better cooks. I want to help chefs become better chefs. And sometimes I just want to create dialogue. I truly do care about the industry. Like I, I spent 27 years as a chef. I love the people in the industry. All my friends are chefs. I gave it 27 years of my life. We were in a marriage. You know what I mean? And I don't want to see it destroyed because we're not talking and educating the next generation. And I think that was a real. I think that's a real issue, and that's a lot of why I started Chefs PSA, because I recognize that it's a problem, and I wanted to act upon what I believe in. Right? I believe in making the industry better. How can I impact that? And Chefs PSA was my way of doing that, like helping people not make as much of the same as many of the mistakes that I made or I've seen other chefs make. Like, let me shortcut your learning curve. And maybe some of the stuff that I write doesn't make sense now, but it might make sense later, right? There's someone that reads those every day that is learning from them, and they're learning from my mistakes. So that's why I do that, because I know they're helping people. I mean, I had someone. I mean, I get these messages often, but the other day someone messaged me and was like, "You are my mentor. I don't have a mentor. You are my mentor. I listen to your podcast. I read your things. And it's like these are the conversations that I never have, but I'm having them with you, even though you don't know who I am."
Those are the
And that
best.
like that's exactly why I do it. I do it for those people, and we may never meet. And I may they may never have an opportunity to thank me, and I may never have the opportunity to congratulate them on their success. But by them doing it, then I know it's a good thing. Like if I could help anyone with something, and if I could make you laugh along the way, and hey, let's do it.
So a couple of days ago, again, we had a conversation, and we talked about mortality.
Mm.
Um, and I got a little personal about my situation with, especially with my grandfather. Him recently passing, and so as a chef, you're often putting your heart and soul into a plate of food. How do you reconcile the transient nature of the experience, where a dish has gone in minutes, and the effort you put into creating it takes so long to do?
Yeah. But you need food, right, to sustain and live. The breath in your lungs is transient also, right?
Mhm.
You, you don't even appreciate the next breath and the one before that. But take it away for a minute, right? And all of a sudden you have a greater appreciation. The expression that a fish doesn't realize it's in water, it takes it for granted. It's like we don't appreciate the atmosphere. Put us underwater, we all of a sudden appreciate the fact that we're not fish. And take a fish out of water, and it appreciates all of a sudden that it lived in the ocean. And I think when you think about the transient nature of food, yes, but it creates a frame of reference, meaning you could eat every single day. You don't, how many meals do you remember of the last year? They're transient. But then all of a sudden, you eat it and it's delicious and it takes you to a place and you feel like the person loved you, or it created an experience, a moment in time. It felt like a hug. All of a sudden, that's that moment. Now you have a frame of reference of what life was like before you had that amazing dish, because now you have a frame of reference. All of a sudden, it's removing the breath, right? Because now it's gone, but you long for that dish. And that is what you're trying to create when we're talking and when we're reflecting on the food that we're creating is don't just cook just to cook. Cook to make it delicious. Cook like you love the person. Cook with intent. Cook so that when you're done and they're done with the meal, they're like the one night stand that you just didn't save the phone on. And you and you wish you did, right? And think about that person forever. That's where I think of the transient nature of food is it can be transient, but could also be memorable. I've had meals that I think about today, right, with people that I wish I had at the table with me still. And if you could do that with your food, then you're doing something exceptional. But in order to do that, you have to cook with intent.
So how has the awareness of your own mortality shaped the way you approach your career and the way you work in the work you do? Do you think about legacy or is it more about the next dish?
No, I mean it's legacy for sure. Um, that's why I stopped cooking. So when I think when you say mortality, I think there's a culinary grim reaper coming for everybody. Uh, what it doesn't necessarily look like death in a dark sense, but it looks like career death. Every chef has their ascendancy where they become successful, and then they have their descendancy where they're cooking how I'm thinking about food. Right? They end up working in a place where they thought they would never work. Maybe they're selling food now, or whatever the case may be, and they don't know where they lost their way. They used to be the hot young chef, and now they've been replaced by a hot young chef. Right? Um, for me to leave the industry culinary is I recognized that I was at the peak of my arc and it was probably going to start going that way as a chef because in general my thoughts on food and I know a lot of the thoughts that I had on food weren't popular narratives, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. And so I had to recognize that um, is this the beginning? Like, is this the beginning of me starting to go extremely simple, which might not be glamorous, which may hurt my business, which may hurt my recruitment, may hurt my circle of chefs, which may hurt my influence. And I recognized that it was time to step away. I want my legacy to be not just what I did as a chef. And honestly, at this point, I don't even know if it's even about the food. Um, I want my legacy to be that I helped chefs and cooks become better than they were yesterday. That to me would be more like I want people to say, you know what, I didn't have a mentor. I listened to Chef's PSA and that was my mentor, kind of like what we were talking about earlier. That to me is more important than the food. Um, and I have cooked some great meals. Um, I've run successful restaurants, but I think those memories are for them, right? For the people that ate there. They have them forever, assuming that they remember it, right? Um, now I want to impact chefs and cooks. That's what I care about.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that. It definitely is legacy that matters the most, because it's what people are gonna remember you the most, right? It's what you leave behind, and I think the internet is such a great way to leave your videos up, and then, long after you're passing or when I pass,
Mhm.
the videos are still gonna be up there, and it's that wisdom that we're gonna be able to receive forever,
Mhm.
right? Um, and I honestly, like, there's times where, like, oh man, like, what would have, let's see, previous chefs working in castles, what were they like? What was their experience, and what would they think of us today, essentially, of, like, how now we're working in these air-conditioned kitchens and, all these tools, but then they were cooking for kings and queens, in this time, and I think having the internet back then would have been cool just to witness or just to even see the
Yeah.
what could have been, or what was then. Um,
Quantum computers might make that possible, right?
yeah. Um, so we've seen the toll of being a chef can take on one's body and mind. Um, do you think there's a hidden cost to the pursuit of excellence in the kitchen, one that people outside of the industry don't fully appreciate?
Yeah, the hidden cost it's usually too. It's mental and physical, right? So, um, the physical toll of being a chef. Let's start there. You're on your feet all day, right? Your feet are not going to be great. Your knees are not going to be great. Your back's not going to be great. And then maybe if you start getting heavy, then it just exacerbates the situation. Um, so then you go out to drink with your friends at night, and then you don't get any sleep, and then you eat poorly because French fries are just right there. You miss staff meal. Um, so yeah, all your vices are right there, right in the kitchen, within arm's reach. So that's not necessarily good. So you have to have a plan physically, like exercise. Say no to going out to drink certain nights, right? You don't have to go out every night. Sleep, right? Request a day off. Whatever you need to do to make sure that you're healthy, because there's not a chef out there, right? That's tasked, right? Or even an old chef that wouldn't trade their chef knowledge for your youth. They'd say, you could have all the knowledge you want. Let me just be young again, right? The other thing to think about is the mental exhaustion of chasing perfection. It can be maddening at times, right? Because nothing's ever good enough. And a lot of times, like perfectionists will surround themselves with people that they perceive are perfectionists, but they're not. Um, they're they just want some of the shine to rub off on them, and they see you descend into madness, right? Um, and you lash out at them because it's not perfect, and um, it could eat you alive, right? Mentally, you lose a little bit of sense of reality in a kitchen because you're there all day and you're the chef and you're the king or the queen or whatever the case may be, and you boss people around and people are afraid of you and people respect you and um, whatever. You create this sort of mystique within the four walls of the restaurant. Then all of a sudden you go meet normal civilian people and they can give a shit about what you've done. And you're just a normal person that they're meeting for the first time. And why do you have such a big ego? Why are you such a douche? Right? Oh, because you cook good food? That's not impressive to me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not a chef. Why would I be impressed because you make good food? That make you a better human? You're absolutely insane. You're not pleasant to be around. Right? And so I said this the other day and I put it up on threads. And I said, oh, I know a lot of extremely talented chefs, a lot that are terrible human beings. And I know a lot of really good human beings that are not good cooks. Choose character, right? At the end of the day, being a good cook doesn't necessarily mean I want to be around you. And it doesn't necessarily even mean I like you. I don't ever want to interview you. I don't want to be in the same room as you because you're not necessarily a good person, right? You're too full of yourself. I'd rather be around a good person that maybe might not be the best cook in the world, but they're a good person and they're good to me and they're supportive and I enjoy being around them. I enjoy their company. So I think it's important for chefs to not lose sight of the fact that um, you're in this world all day long and this is your world. But at the same time, it could also eat you from the inside out.
You mentioned something that kind of brought back what you said in your book, "Bad Sue, Good Sue," uh, and I guess the executive chef had told the new sous chef, um, "Why do you remember your birthday? Do you remember your what was it called? When you graduated culinary school? Why are those things important to you? And um, he had said, "Oh, it's because I mean, well,
I know,
because he said those are important to me,
I
right?"
know what you're talking about. Why do you remember this? Why do you remember that? Because the young chef asked the older chef, "How do you seem to remember everything?
Mhm.
You never forget anything." And then the older chef responded to the younger one and said, well, how do you remember your birthday? How do you remember, when you graduate culinary school or other important events in your life? And the person responded and said, they're important. The wise chef said, well, everything's important to me. That's why I remember everything. And that is the truth about life. You remember things that are important. You forget things that aren't important. And in the kitchen, what I was referencing in that book is everything is important. You want to be excellent. Everything is important. And once it becomes important, you'll remember it. If it was important, you would remember. If it wasn't important, you won't remember. Right? You remember your birthday because it's important. And by the way, that is an old Eastern philosophy conversation. That is not original to me. That's an allegory that I put into the book, and that entire book is based on allegory. Um, a lot of what I tried to do was encapsulate a lot of wisdom that I've read or conversations that I've had from mentors, from books that I've read, from life experience, and just like put that into this conversation and answer all the questions. It's one of my favorite books that I've written. That one is a personal one. Also, so is Kitchen Art of War. Those two are very personal to me. And Bad Cooks Everywhere, I would say like that's probably the third most personal books. The other one, like Line Cook Survival Manual and Culinary Leadership Fundamental, like those are practical books. That's practical wisdom that you can apply in the kitchen. But the other ones are narrative based or philosophy based, which is what that's like my true passion. Like I like deep thoughts, deep contemplation. And I think Bad Sue, Good Chef, and Kitchen Art of War really express a different layer to my mind than how I like to think.
Yeah, no, the man, those books were really good. So I can't wait to talk about them. Um, you know what? I'm gonna ask you. I'm gonna talk about Bad Cooks Everywhere. The process of writing a book is an intimate one.
Mhm.
How did writing this book change your understanding of yourself and as a chef, as a person?
Um, the Bad Cooks Everywhere, and for context, it's a fictional narrative for people that are listening. It's a fictional narrative about a young culinary student that jumps into the kitchens. They think they're hot shit, and they get thrown into the deep end. Um, and I think I wrote that book because I wanted to illustrate. There's a character arc in there. There's story, but really what I wanted to illustrate is that there's different types of kitchens, and they're all run different. Some cooks or some kitchens are very serious. Some cooks are like, dirty, greasy spoons. Some other cooks are rowdy, but there's a lot of common threads that go throughout all these different kitchens. And when you read the book, hopefully people will read the book. What they'll realize is that the title "Bad Cooks Everywhere" is that sometimes this guy was in the best kitchens in the world, and there were bad cooks there, and there were the worst cooks in the world, and there were good cooks there. That there's good people in bad kitchens and there's bad people in good kitchens. And and also vice versa. And where this one cook found that he was going to be happiest had to do nothing with the food. It had more to do with the environment that he was cooking in. And I think if people understood that a little earlier in their career, that the environment in which you're working makes a huge difference in your happiness level of your career. You see this great divide right now where a lot of the conversation revolves around toxic kitchens, and a lot of people can't relate. A lot of people are like, yeah, my chef's an asshole. Everyone here is drunk all the time, whatever, right? It's like we didn't get paid. They have all these examples, right? And other people are like, what are you talking about? I have a great I have a great place where I work. And what you realize is that they're both right. They both exist. Both of those exist at the same time. Not all kitchens are toxic and not all kitchens are good. And sometimes there's a little bit of a gradient between them. And so that's what I wanted to accomplish with Bad Cooks Everywhere is to know that the journey that you're on is your individual journey and that you're going to encounter these bad and good people regardless. And it's more about you saying, no, I don't want to be here, or it's about you finding the right environment where you are going to be successful. Uh, because at the end of the day, what we're dealing with is people, right? We're talking about toxic people. It's not kitchens, it's people that we're talking about. There's toxic Walmarts, right? There's toxic gas stations. There's toxic lawyer firms. There's also good gas stations that everyone wants to go to. And like we're talking about people, what makes those places good or bad? The people. That's it. It's not the building. The building doesn't do anything. Only thing the building did was give someone a platform to behave the way that they were. Kitchens are the same way. Kitchens aren't intrinsically toxic, but people are, certain ones, and other people are not. And depending on what you selected and where you ended up as a chef, well, that's going to determine a lot of your worldview. But your worldview is your worldview. It's not everyone's world. And that's what I was trying to accomplish with Bad Cooks Everywhere, is to offer a little bit of a counter narrative and hopefully um, put a little bit of ownership back on the individual that's going through the journey. Like, you always have a choice to lead, and you always have a choice to find the right.
Do you think the culinary world is in need of more unconventional cookbooks like Bad Cooks Everywhere?
No.
It
Leave it to, I got it. I got you covered. No, let's stick to cookbooks. Uh, stick to TikTok reels.
right?
No, I don't know. I don't know. Like I think there's just like there's a lot of different opinions out there. I think the more people that have opinions, I'll tell you what the problem is that there's a lot of people. Social media allows people to amplify their voices, and sometimes the wrong voices get amplified with, not necessarily good intention. Um, and it's easy to attract negativity. It's also easy to attract positivity. So choose wisely, right? Do you want to be mad all day when you're on social media? You want to find something to complain about, or you want to find something to be inspired by, right? It's a choice that we face every day. So there's narratives out there and there's advice out there for everybody. My thing is, and this is why I started Chef's PSA, it's a part of why I started Chef's PSA, is I realized that there's a lot of people that give advice that have no business giving advice, because it's a level that they don't understand or they've never reached. So you're giving advice on how to be a chef, but you were never a chef, right? You're telling people that the industry is screwed, but you have no solutions on how to fix it, right? You're talking about things that you don't fully understand. And not that you can't talk about them. That's okay. Everyone has the right to talk about whatever they want. But no one else was talking. No one else with sense was talking. And I felt like we only have one side of the argument being talked about. So I wanted to provide an alternative viewpoint and say, hey, look, maybe the reason you're not getting promoted isn't because you're too good. Because I've never met anyone not get promoted because they're too good. It's probably because you're not good, right? And maybe you need to reframe how you're looking at things. Or maybe when people say all kitchens are toxic, it's like, no, maybe your kitchen was toxic. Maybe you need to go work for a good chef. And I think people would understand that with time and with the right guidance and mentorship. So I just wanted to provide um, another example of the way to do it. And anytime I talk about something, I know it from like real experience. I'm not talking about being a chef. Like, I was an executive chef at least 9 times in my career, from restaurants, hotels, country clubs, corporate chef. Like, I've done a lot of executive. I worked the Garde Manger station. I've written menus. I've consulted. I've opened lots of things. I know what I'm talking about. I've had hundreds of employees. I've run in those circles. You know what I mean? Like, I have all my friends are chefs. Like, I have these conversations. So let me explain to you what it is that I know. I promise you, I'm not going to ever steer anyone wrong intention. Sometimes I give bad advice, but I'm not doing it with any malicious intent behind it. Everything that I'm trying to do is actually to uplift the industry. That's truly what I want. I want a better industry for all cooks and chefs.
Yeah, so I'm listening to Bad Cooks Everywhere, and honestly, it seems like you've covered all the bases in terms of. I'm not saying I haven't finished it actually. So let me just say that
Oh,
again. I haven't finished it yet.
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I won't ruin it. No, I'm just kidding. That's not
But
that's not credit for listening.
But from what I'm reading it so far, right, like up to this point,
Yeah.
to where I'm at right now, um, it seems like you're covering a lot of the bases of what, a good kitchen and a bad kitchen is essentially, right? Um, and I think that that book is very practical
Mhm.
into a real life situation, and it seems to me, in my honest opinion, like I and I told you this in the previous podcast where I wished I knew who you were when I was first starting out as a line cook or even as a chef, because it's books like Bad Cooks Everywhere or even Good Soup, Bad Soup. Those books are great reference guide on being able to navigate through life as a chef or as a line cook.
Yeah.
And so far, I strongly recommend those books.
Everything that I know as a chef, but for the most part, besides like recipes, and I have a free ebook with recipes too. So for people that want that, but um, everything that I know as a chef, the knowledge that I've accumulated is either in my books or my podcast. I'm not holding anything back. Um, I think maybe it's now how to put it all together. But if you want to take a lifetime of experience, it's right there. I've put it all out there for people to just it's there for people to consume. Um, ad- Adopt what is relevant to today or relevant to you and to your workplace and to your kitchen. Disregard what's not. Like you don't have to agree with me, but I promise you, I wouldn't write about it if I didn't believe it, or if I hadn't proved that it worked and I hadn't seen it work. So everything that I talk about or everything that I put out there, I usually it's curated. It's curated to help. Period.
So you just mentioned a cookbook
Hmm.
that you have online, which is free.
Hmm.
Um, I wanted to talk about why you don't do cooking videos.
Yeah, yeah, it's a good point. And by the way, it's 100 basic recipes, and I think it was so I did that book. It's an ebook. I don't know. Right when Chat GPT came out, I did a video. It was like, hey, Chat GPT is writing my recipes for me. And I programmed it like, here's my recipe. Now scale it to 10 or whatever and write it in this method. So I personally think, because I put it out like a week after Chat GPT came out. And I think it's the first AI plus chef written recipe book ever. Right? It was like half AI, half me. It was like my recipe, AI scaling. I don't know how accurate it is, because I have sometimes cooked out of those recipes, like, oh, that actually is off. Like the taco recipe, I think you needed more egg or less egg. I can't remember what. Um, but it's a good guide. It's a good primer. If you know how to cook and you need a recipe, like it's a good resource. Um, I should probably update it with now that ChatGPT knows how to scale recipes better, because you could give it a recipe and you say, do it for 10 and change it from cups to grams or whatever. And it'll be correct. But anyway, that didn't answer your question. Answering your question about why I don't do cooking videos, what I've discovered with Chef's PSA is that, um, and also in the chef community, like chefs are tribe, fine dining chefs, catering chefs, the line cooks, the executive chefs, the sous chefs, people that work in fast casual, like they kind of stick together a little bit. The lessons that I put out daily, whether it's in my books, the podcast, or in the daily post, it's intended for everybody. Usually, occasionally, it's maybe a little bit more fine dining specific, or maybe a little bit more casual specific. But my lessons are intended for 90% of the culinary audience that listening or watching or reading. Right, that's the message is for 90% of it. And I feel like if I created cooking content, I would alienate a lot of people and they'd say, oh, he's not one of us. He just wants to make that. I think they would miss out on a lot of what I'm saying. And I think what I'm saying and what I'm writing is more important than what I would be cooking. Because what I'd be cooking, I'd just be expressing how I felt at the moment or a particular dish or a particular style. And if someone doesn't relate to that food, like again, I'll just use fine dining as an example. If I cook something from a fine dining world, then the only people that might appreciate it are people that are in that world. People that don't cook that food will say, he thinks he's too good. He's cooking that kind of food. And people that are in the 3-star world might think, his food's not as good as ours, right? So now I only have this audience that is only going to read the message. I'd rather have all of them. I'd rather have everyone get that. So I try not to get too specific on the culinary stuff because I don't want people to get fixated on that and lose the message. But I do know how to cook.
I believe you.
Yeah, people are wondering. Yeah, I do know how to cook, and I do like talking about food. And I do like thinking about food, and yeah, it's just not that's not what Chef's PSA is right now. Maybe eventually I'll incorporate cooking content, but I think if I do, it won't be a specific style of cuisine. Like I don't think it'll be only fine dining or only this, that, and the other. I think it'll be like if I had an idea, like I do have ideas if I ever want to do cooking content, like I would like to like give me a recipe, like throw a restaurant at me, like, okay, I got to do an Italian fine dining in Rome. Great, let me make those dishes. Oh, you got to do fine dining in Charleston. Great, I'll make food that looks like that. I just want to make interesting, and I would stick to that. So, or people could say to me, like, give me Italian fine dining 1985. Great, like I'd love to do that. She'd be like, okay, here's some spaghetti with some meatballs and parsley on the rim with the garlic. Like it would look different than fine dining Italian 2025, right? So I like that. I would like to explore specific, like today's task is this, because there's a lot of varieties of food. It's not all fine dining. It's not all casual.
Yeah, you make a solid point because you do want to target everybody, right? From the aspiring chef who is in culinary school all the way to a three Michelin star chef.
Right.
And your advice is practical in all of them.
Yeah.
And I can see why like there's certain cuisines I'm not going to mention that don't pique my interest. But if you started cooking that style of cuisine, I'm going to be like, like stick to your messages, like stick to your PSA. And and I think that that's definitely a smart move, business move on your part. Um, is there a danger that chefs who flood the internet with content risk diluting their true value of their craft, or is it part of the modern chef's evolution of the digital age?
Well, I think you have to. I think you have to have some social media presence. It's good for business. It's going to bring people into your restaurant. It's going to build awareness for people that want to work at your restaurant. It's just attention, and I think today you have to exist online. I think it's just a way of doing business. If you want your business to be moderately successful, you need to do something. Now, if you want your business to be extremely successful, then you have to do something extreme, right? You know, you can't conflate the two. You have to say something really outlandish and something audacious that's going to go viral, right? And you have the potential to swing and miss. So, I do think chefs need to put something out there because it is your digital resume for many things, for hiring cooks, for getting hired, getting customers in. Um, Setting yourself up for the next job, whatever the case may be. I think you need to do something online. Um, and even if you're a sous chef in a place, right? Maybe you're not the executive chef. I do think you should also be creating content because um, you might expand the restaurant's audience, which keeps you employed long, right? Because maybe the executive chef isn't good at social media because they're just not, and you are because you're younger and you get it, and so you create a lot of social media that drives business to the restaurant. Guess what? That's a net positive for you. You get more hours, the doors remain open, right? So I do think social media is a part of everyone's business, and they should be thinking about that a lot. And if you have your Instagram on private and it's just family stuff, maybe, and I get it, maybe you create another one that's you know, chef whatever, and you keep your private one that's just for your friends and your family. But you have this other one that's for driving business and creating awareness around what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I definitely see where you're coming from with that. I mean, in my case, sometimes I'll post about food on my main page, which is the chef Ismael Torres. But then I also have my private chef and catering page, which is Rough Chop.
Mhm.
And that's where I essentially put up either the recipes or the food that I've cooked in the for my clients, or things that I've done in the past. But if you go scroll even lower down to my page, like you'll see me working at the steakhouse, or you'll see me holding up my awards and
Mhm.
different types of steaks I've done in the past, right? Um, so I too can cook for those DMing me. Hey, you really, dude. I know I don't really go into food, but I've had those DMs where like, hey, so who are you to tell us how to do things, or and stuff like that. It's just I okay, cool. Like, check out my other page. Like, it's right there.
Right. Or don't. Like,
Yeah.
you follow me. I don't care.
Yeah. I mean,
There's nothing wrong with just quietly leaving.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't post one specific type of cuisine. I mean, this last time I did what, pizza, and then
Mhm.
before that I did I don't remember, honestly. But I've done pastas, I've done, steakhouse cuisine, I've done Mexican cuisine, I've done all that stuff, and I think as a private chef, like, you need to be well diverse in different types of cuisine, especially when your client is asking for, oh, can you do Indian cuisine? Can you do
Right.
uh whatever it is. So, and I think it's important that I do showcase that I can do it, especially for that business aspect. So I do have some closing thoughts. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
No, I have
Uh,
all day booked for this. I told you we could do a 4-hour one. I got opinions. You just asked.
okay. when when you when you look back at everything you've accomplished, how do you find how do you define success in the kitchen, in business, and in life? Is it about the accolades, or is it something more profound?
It's definitely more profound. The accolades, I couldn't tell you. Sometimes I'll remember, oh yeah, I did win that award. I don't remember it. Usually the first award meant the most, right? Because it's like, oh, I'll always remember when I got best chef, whatever, right? Um, for me, what's more memorable is the people that I've helped in the kitchen. So the chefs that have worked with me that have now gone on to do amazing things. And one of my, someone that was a CDP for me, just got nominated for James Beard, um, best new pastry chef or best pastry chef. Shout out to Susan Bay at Moon Rabbit. She, her and I worked together, and she was a CDP, and now she's, going up on stage. One of my close friends, that worked for me has gotten nominated too, and best chef here, best chef there. Like, I'm so proud of these people. I have a girl that used to work for me, and she's blowing up huge on TikTok and social media with her cookie business and her cakes and all that, right? Um, and it's like that makes me so proud. It's like, her account's bigger than mine, right? And she was a sous chef in the pastry kitchen, and I see that. It's like that makes me super proud of these chefs that I've worked with. So I get really proud when I see that. Um, and I have another. I could go on and on. There's no sense in talking about all the people that I'm proud of. I'm proud of all of them that are with all of you. I'm proud of. So there's that pride in the legacy. Um, as far as like the business goes, so the business, there should be two levels of fulfillment. You should uh, enjoy what you're doing, right? There should be some sort of creative expression if you can. So, like, we're all chefs, so there's creative expression daily in cooking. And what I do now, there's creative expression, like I mentioned earlier, writing and things like that. But there's also monetary incentive that, like, is a very quantifiable way if you know you're being successful, right? Are you making money? Because ultimately, we all have bills to pay, and so we don't do it for free. The like, you don't cook for free, like, in your restaurant. You expect to get paid, right? It's not a hobby. It is a profession. So there should be some sort of financial incentive structure based around what you're doing. So for me, how do I measure how well the business is doing? Well, there's two ways. Am I being able to express myself creatively? Am I helping people, which is the mission? And is it making money, right? Ultimately, like, is there revenue being generated, whether through sales or sponsorships or consulting or public speaking or something like that? There should be some sort of revenue model built around it. And then in terms of life, that's where it gets really tricky, um, because the only way you could say, was I successful? Well, let's say my ultimate goal was to be an astronaut. I never became an astronaut. So people might look at me like, "Oh, you're a chef. You accomplished all this. You have chef's PSA." It's like, yeah, but I was never an astronaut. Right? Like I'm a failure. Never went to the moon, or I don't even know if we even went to the moon. Who knows? But anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But you see my point. Like, could I say I'm successful if I never became an astronaut? If that was my true goal, right? Because people could look at someone and say that person's very successful. Let's take let's take someone successful like Warren Buffett, extremely rich, extremely successful, but he's pretty old. You don't think he would trade his wealth to be you right now? To say, he's probably thinking I only got a few more years left. I'd give all my money back for time. So is he successful? So I don't know. I think you'd have to measure success by, um, are you enjoying the journey? Period. Like, are you enjoying the journey? Because it never stops. The moments are fleeting. They become memories in no time. Are you enjoying it? Are you happy? Is your baseline? And by the way, for people, it's like, oh, you can't always be happy. I agree. You're not always going to be happy, but is your baseline happy? Is like your default setting. Like we all have our default settings. Is your default setting like I'm fucking miserable all the time, but occasionally I'm happy? Or is your default setting like I'm happy all the time and occasionally I'm miserable? Or I'm stoic all the time and maybe it goes, depends on this way or that way. And I think that's to me uh, a more interesting way to measure, am I successful in life, is what is my default? And in general, my default is happy. Like I'm a happy person. I'm happy go lucky. I'm easy to get along with. I like to tell jokes. And I'm occasionally not happy. But that's more not.
You mentioned happiness, and there was someone had said to me, "The hell is this stone on the floor?" Someone had said to me, that they would much rather. They don't really care about being happy. They care about the results.
Mhm. Are we talking life or in the kitchen? What's the context here?
I'm talking about, I guess, life in general because he's not a chef, he's not a line cook, but he's a real estate agent, right?
Uh-huh.
And he says to me he doesn't have time to be happy. He because he needs to continuously work and make sure that that there's food on the table, right? Happiness isn't going to pay for the bills, right?
Right.
Um, is there a way to find a balance between being happy and being successful, or does being successful always have to mean that you have to continue um, to push forward and forget about how you're feeling? Does that make sense?
Um, I don't know if that guy's right, by the way,
Mhm.
because I would push back on him and say, could he not be happy doing that? Like, does he have to do that angrily? Or does he have to do that happily? Like, could he not be happy that he's working all day and providing? Why doesn't that fulfill him? Does that make him angry? So it goes back to my baseline comment. His baseline is probably miserable and he's occasionally happy, right? Because I could work all day and I'm still happy. It's my purpose. I'm driven. I'm getting the results and I'm happy getting those results. They make me happy. So I don't subscribe to that. So I would look at that person and say, from my perspective of success, they are not successful. Because if they were successful, they would be providing and happy. That would be success. They're just providing. So that's not success. Providing with success and happiness to me would be, I'm sorry, providing and being happy would be success. Well, I would argue but my caveat here would be that's my measurement of happiness. That might not be his measurement of happiness. His measurement, or I'm sorry, of success. His measurement of success might be I have to be the most miserable I can. That is true success. Okay, well then you work. Then like if your measurement of success is being miserable, but you're supporting your family and your loved ones, then hey, then you hit the lottery. You became the astronaut, right? So I think it's success is measured on an individual basis. It's not success isn't measured by the community. So success is measured at the individual level, not measured at the community level. Um, because we're just projecting how we view success to that person, right? But the only person who truly knows if they're successful or not is the individual, because you're only competing with yourself. Period. That's it in life. No one's going to come save you. It's just you.
Yeah. I also had to push back on him on that one too, because it's like you're right. Like, I mean, he doesn't seem miserable. I think his thing was he doesn't have time to be happy, and it's because he's trying to, he flips houses and he does, the real estate thing, and he's
That,
just
that,
very,
that sounds like some fucking alpha real estate bro.
yeah,
Uh,
he is like that. Yeah.
like you don't have time to be happy. You got to be hustling all the.
Yep.
These are viral clips. Look, chef, you guys don't have time to be happy. You need to be cooking all day. And if your food's not good, then it's like, yeah, anyone could say that shit. It's not difficult, but here's here's the quote that I love. If a tiger is chasing you, you could run in a panic, or you could run with a smile on your face. But to not run would be unwise, right? You got to run either way. You could run happy or you could run scared. And this guy has to provide regardless. And just using him as the example, I don't know who he is. He might be amazing. I don't know who he is, but he has to provide regardless. He could provide with a smile on his face, or he could provide being upset about it. The choice is his. If you have, if you get to choose anyway, which is one of the great gifts of life, you get to choose if you want to be happy or sad when the tiger is chasing you. Why not choose happy?
Yeah, true. What would you say to a young chef starting out? What is the most important thing to keep in mind as they move forward into an unpredictable and demanding culinary world?
Um, be in the right kitchen. So figure out what type of chef you want to be when you grow up. So if you want to be a 3 Michelin star chef, or you want to be a cruise ship chef, or you want to be a hotel chef, or a country club chef, or the chef at the barbecue restaurant. Okay, once you figured that out, go work in those places, because that's where you're going to learn how to do that. You want to be the best barbecue chef in the world, go work in a barbecue restaurant. You want to be the next 3 Michelin, go work in a 3 Michelin. You'll get there faster. Anytime, sometimes spent in kitchens that are not that is time wasted, because it's not getting you to the goal. You're going to learn things, but you're not going to learn specific things, right? You're going to be much better off being in the right kitchen. Okay, then when you get into those right kitchens, get a mentor early on. As early as you can get a mentor, find one. And ideally, someone that's doing what you want. So you want to be the best barbecue chef in the world, and you're working in a great barbecue restaurant, get mentored by the person that's the best barbecue chef, right? Because they will have real world advice that will get you to their position faster. Listen, learn. Don't be afraid of hard work. It's going to be hard. There's going to be good days and there's going to be bad days. There's going to be days that you don't want to go to work. And there's going to be days that you're winning and you think that good times are never going to end. And there's going to be times when you're going to think that bad times are never going to end. But my grandfather's expression that I really like, he's like, no one has 100 years of bad luck, and there's not an idiot out there that would put up with it for 100 years.
That's so good. Okay. Uh, oh man, I'm gonna use that. That's really good.
Yeah.
Um, is there anything in the culinary world that you regret?
Um, yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of life events that I missed. Um, And I had a million reasons why I couldn't attend these life events, fill in the blank. And for everyone, they're different. It might have been a wedding, it might have been the birth of a child, it might have been, the vacation that you wanted, whatever it is, or the Christmas or the whatever. And you missed it because you thought you needed to be at work, but you didn't even ask for the day off, right? You didn't even try. You just assumed you needed to be there because the place would fall apart without you. And then what you quickly realize is that the place doesn't fall apart and that you don't even remember why you went to work that day. You just remember that you missed that Christmas or that birthday or that wedding or that whatever, right? That's all you remember. You remember that you missed it, but you don't even remember why you missed it. You don't remember why you needed to go to work that day. They didn't close because, and in retrospect, you know that. But you didn't even ask. You didn't even request for the day off. You didn't even try. That's one of my regrets. Is I missed a lot of stuff because I thought I always needed to be at work, but I didn't even make the effort to see if I could have gotten away with not being out. That's my biggest regret. As I should have, uh, I should have stepped out more and given my life more attention.
I think there's a lot of that happening, not just in the culinary industry, but just in general.
Uh-huh.
And for instance, my dad missed a lot, but
Mhm.
that's because he had to work,
Yeah.
right? And we financially, we weren't, like, good, so it was like I understood why he wasn't able to be at my soccer games or, um, at my award ceremonies or whatever it was, right?
Mhm.
But also, now that I'm in that position where I'm not saying I'm doing, not good financially, but what I'm saying is, I have that opportunity now to be able to go to my son's games or to, to birthday parties or whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
And I think that in the early stages of being a chef, like, I missed out a ton as well.
Mhm.
And part of that is because, yes, like you might think that it might all fall apart if you're not there to make sure that everything's good. And there was a post I saw on Instagram where it's like, okay, well, when you die, you know, the next day or whatever it is, like, someone's gonna post up your,
Good job.
your job,
Yeah.
right? And you're replaceable,
Mhm.
everyone's replaceable. And it's the same thing with, during COVID time, right? Your restaurant shut down, like, what do you do now? You
Mhm.
know? Um, so I think it's extremely important that people understand that they are replaceable and that one day of missing work won't hurt the finances, won't hurt the industry. You're just not gonna be there for one day, you
Yeah.
know?
And you won't resent it. And I think that's also a key part of the conversation is you won't resent the industry as much because you feel like it took something from you and it never gave back. Um, but you also didn't do your part of even asking for the time off or making the effort to try and take it, right? So you resent the industry for not giving you something that you never asked for, if that makes sense. When I was a chef, we'd stand around a bunch of bro chefs and be like, I worked the last 10 Christmases, I worked every holiday and I missed a wedding. So, and we'd flex. It was a flex to say, uh, it was a badge of honor to say how much our outside life was suffering because we're here, right? I missed all of this, but I'm here, right? Uh, I don't know how much of a flex that is. Probably not like to who?
Right.
To like who are you flexing for? For you? For some line cooks? For some chef? For some GM? What about the people that in the outside world that it would have meant the world if you were at a soccer game or whatever.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, those flexes aren't gonna be on your resume,
No.
and when
It's
I
not gonna be on your tombstone. Never
Right.
miss, never miss your work every Christmas. Is such a badass.
Yeah. No, the,
The restaurant wouldn't have done it without him. Thank
right?
God he didn't miss. Thank God he was there every Christmas. I can say that.
Yeah, no, absolutely, man. And then, I do have one more question for you. The, um, Chef's PSA, any future projects that you're working on that you might wanna talk about or no?
Well, I haven't done a solo episode in a while. I might start putting some of the solo episodes back up, just so I don't spend, the guest episode ranting just about my food thoughts. Um, so I might start putting some solo episodes back up because I feel like maybe I need to express some of what's going on in here out there, put it out there just so I can let it go. Right. I'm like a dog with a bone sometimes when I have an idea. Um, But I think I'd like for Chef's PSA to evolve to more communal. Like I enjoy the group podcasts. It's a conversation. It's not an interview. I like to have good conversations. I like to tell jokes. And I like to humanize chefs. And part of what I do with the podcast is I want to invite people to the bar, like or to the house when we're watching the fights. Like this is what we're talking about. Um, so I like to structure the podcast that yes, there's some content in there that is going to be specific for chefs and cooks, but there's also some content in there so you could humanize the chef a little bit. So you can know who they are outside of just Chef Ismael, Chef Andre, or whatever. It's like, yeah, I'm Chef Andre, but guess what? I'm Andre first. I was Andre before I was Chef Andre, and I have a lot of other things that I like to talk about besides culinary. I have a lot more interest than besides culinary, and I'm not the only chef that thinks that way. Um, so I'd like to evolve the podcast more into the group episodes, a little bit more fun. Because I like to have fun.
Awesome. I know I asked you this last podcast, but, where can we find you?
Anything Chef's PSA. So on the podcast, the Chef's PSA, all social medias, I think except for probably Snapchat. I think I'm on every social media. Um, Chef's PSA. It's the easiest way to find me. And if they want to get my books, they could go to chefspsa.com. And if the store link is also on chefspsa.com. But if you're looking directly for chef clothing, you go to shop.chefspsa.com.
Awesome. I'll have all of that stuff on the, description below.
Thank you.
Um,
Thank you to your listeners, and to all the supporters of Chef Podcast and Chef Entrepreneurs. We greatly appreciate it.
awesome. Alright, chef. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and, if you have any other thoughts, then
No, we're
please
good. Thank you,
alright.
Chef. It's good to see you.